red race when me walk past. Me feel the eyes, believe the eye, me love the light, me drink the pipe.
Baby, pana, they say you like you all I get to all baby, pana. Anywhere that you go, I can follow you to go, baby.
You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM.
New level, new level. New level, new level. New level, new level. I them turn to one in a rebel. Pam pam banana pam panam banana pam pam banana pam panam pam 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 banana pam panam banana pam pam banana pam panam pam.
Your voice, your music, your station. WGHC 98.3 FM.
I am Mazi KK Odeluga. Mazi Ejikeme Obasi.
Na Mazi Oke Okachuku.
This is Straight Talk Radio, the world as we see. Coming to you from WGHC 98.3 FM. Your voice, your music, your station.
Listen to us this and every Saturday at 4 to 5 p.m. U.S. Central, and this and every Tuesday at 9 to 10 p.m. U.S. Central.
Ndewolo. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Straight Talk Radio. I am Mazi Ejikeme Obase. My co-hosts, Mazi Oke Okachuku and Mazi KK Odeluga, will be calling in shortly. Today's Tuesday, our Global Tuesdays, where we talk about things outside of Africa, predominantly here in the United States. Before I start, I would like to remind listeners that you can join us at any time by logging in on our on Facebook, on our webpage on Facebook, Straight Talk on Facebook. For those of you who live close by, you can call in 563-999-3221 to listen. Those of you who have the iPhone, you can get the Straight Talk, the WGHC app on the App Store. And those of you who have the Android can go to TuneIn Radio, and you can get the TuneIn Radio app, or visit tunein.com. Those who may want to participate, you can either participate through the Facebook page, or you can call the studio directly, 773-942-7167. Okay, so today we will be talking a little bit about our president's wife's visit to Africa for representing the Peace Corps, and talk about what that means, especially in light of the fact that her husband has made it clear that he would like to abolish the program completely, as he does not believe that it is a good avenue to spend American money. He feels we can do better with other endeavors. So the question is, if the administration feels strongly that this is something that should go away, why is Melania Trump in Ghana for Peace Corps? So that's something we're going to be talking about and fleshing it out a little bit. But before we get there, I would like to kind of reminisce a little bit about the hot topics that are going on in the United States right now. So for those of you who are following the Laquan McDonald trial in Chicago, you may know that the policeman who shot him actually is giving testimony in court. And he actually, under oath, did give the testimony that Laquan McDonald approached him, lifted a gun, lifted a knife to stab him, and that is what resulted in his being shot. This evidence, despite the fact that there is video and other evidence that to the contrary. So I believe my co-host, Mazi Oke Okachukwu, is on the phone right now. Mazi Okachukwu, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am. Good evening.
Kelenundi Madu.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, what do you have to say about that? Were you listening to the trial, and what are your thoughts?
I saw the news, and this is like telling people, do not believe your lion eyes and the videos you see, because I see it better. I cannot believe that his attorneys and whoever prepared him for trial, even in the face of a video from the police vehicle from different angles, showed directly that he would get on the stand and exactly what he said. That he repeatedly shouted, drop the knife before opening fire. Wasn't caught on any audio, wasn't seen by anybody else. And the video clearly shows the guy moving and walking away and everybody else following. And for some reason, he is the only one that sees this. He is the only one that actually, something must be wrong with the videos we saw, because we did not see any such thing that he was telling us. I'm not sure what it is, but that's the defense they're putting up, and I'm hoping that the jurors must have seen the videos. If they haven't, I'm hoping, I'm praying that the court plays it for them.
Well, yeah, the other part of it, of course, that is, let me first start, of course, let me put it out there that we are neither adjudicating or trying this case. We are not part of the jury, so we don't know what the outcome is going to be, and we would like to believe that it is going to end up being a fair process. But yes, it seems a little strange that this is testimony that is being given in the face that flies totally in the face of every other corroborative evidence that has been shown during this trial. And I do believe that several of the coroner's report also pointed out that Laquan McDonald was shot several times in the back.
Yep.
So how do you lift a knife? Or maybe when he pulled the gun, Laquan McDonald then turned to run away, and that's how come he got shot in the back.
If it was just that he was saying that, and that's all. They demonstrated in court. They actually did a demonstration in court, from what I'm reading.
Yeah.
The guy was advancing and coming close towards him. So I really, I didn't see that in any of the videos. That's why I'm kind of flabbergasted that this is what they presented. My eyes and the videos either they were tampered, the ones I saw, or my eyes were lying to me, because the two different videos from different angles that I saw showed entirely different things.
Yeah. Well, as it is, we shall continue to watch the case as it evolves and see where this leads to. The other news I thought we might talk a little bit about before we actually go to Melania Trump and the Peace Corps is the issue of Justice Kavanaugh. Because the FBI, I am made to understand, have somewhat expanded the case, looking at other reports and following other leads. But even as the FBI does their job, there was something that came up today that I thought maybe we should touch on a little bit. Because we know that in the United States, there are three branches. Okay? You have the presidency, you have the legislative branch, and then you have the judiciary. They are independent. The legislators can be partisan because they are called from different political spheres. So you can be Democrat or Republican or independent. And at the end of the day, you are elected by people from your constituency. And I assume, or I suppose, you do owe your constituency the duty of representing them and their feelings. The judiciary, I am from my understanding, is there primarily to interpret the law. They are neutral. They are not partisan, and they cannot let their partisan ideology shade their interpretation of the law. So you look at Justice Kavanaugh's, I would say his presentation throughout the Senate hearing, even before it was adjourned to let the FBI carry out their investigation. And I must say, to me, that was an extremely partisan presentation. So I was wondering, is it just me? Mazio Deluga, what do you think?
Ndewo. It's really been an interesting time for many of us who have been part of this democracy and part of the American experience. Yes, everybody knew that Brett Kavanaugh was coming in as a GOP hatchet man. His antecedents, his profile, his background has always pitched him as a partisan politician.
Okay.
Not only did he participate as a young attorney in the Kenstar Independent Council, but also he worked in the Bush White House and was one of the key architects of the Bush versus Gore, defense team.
Okay. During the election.
The election.
The hanging Chad saga.
That's right.
Yes.
And then subsequently worked in the White House. And so he has always been at crossroads of all the recent partisan issues that have actually enveloped America in the last 20, 25 years. So being appointed a judge, and he's had so many positions that showed that he had a special bent in the way and manner that he sees the law, how he interprets the law. Yeah. And so I wasn't surprised that he pulled in the Bill Clinton, because anybody on the Republican side can no longer say anything in the last 30 years unless they call the name Bill Clinton. He used to be Obama as the bogeyman.
Yes.
So the Clinton is the bogeyman. So he, of course, had to go there because that will rally a certain section of the base. Just the same way like you were discussing, why would Mr. McDonald, who is being tried in the
Laquan McDonald, yes.
Yes. Van Dyke.
Okay, Van Dyke, yes.
Why would he tell a lie? Literally, on the stand.
Yes.
The same things that they put down in their police report that was refuted by the video, why would he go on record?
And
because he wasn't speaking to you and I.
Okay.
He's trying to create an alternative narrative which will be believed by those who are looking at it as part of the new experience of the American white male being persecuted unfairly by the left and the minorities. So why would he go there? He went there to create that alternative narrative about what truly happened, because not everyone who's listening
is unbiased.
Is unbiased.
Or has an open mind.
That's right.
Yes.
So you saw the video, you knew what that was about. Now, everybody who heard Professor Ford,
yes,
felt the pain, and somehow, even like the president acknowledged, saw that she was very credible. And part of the if the defense, the Republican question in line of questioning was to ascertain if she was a political hack.
Okay.
And it became clear
That she was not.
that she was just naive, a novice, not knowing so much about the political process, didn't really want this thing to get beyond just, please, if you guys know how to mention this as part of one of the issues, but I don't want to be involved with that. Even if as all that came out, his response was from the political wing, trying to express a new anger against the so-called left and minorities who are trying to endanger the white male.
Yeah. Mazioke, do you have anything to add to this?
Oh, yeah. So, I think New York Times in August printed a story about how Trump is changing the courts, how Trump and the Republicans are changing the American court system and remaking the court. And if you read that, actually, they pointed out that a lot of the people that are being put in federal courts, and even Gorsuch that got to the Supreme Court, were recommended by the Federalist Society. And this is a right-wing society. They have trained a lot of people, some of whom did not have any appellate experience, but actually they were training them to get to the courts. So this is a long play that's been in place since. So the list that Trump had presented for where he picks Gorsuch from, where Kavanaugh is coming from, is from a deep bench that had been prepared by the Federalist Society. Now, having said that, why that's important is if you remember Kennedy, the Republican Kennedy, became famous sometime early this year because of questioning one of the guys that was trying to be that was picked by Trump to get on the federal court.
Yes.
He found the guy had absolutely no experience whatsoever, was not even qualified. He just happens to be part of that society.
Yes.
And he was weeded out.
Yes.
Now, this is one out of the many. There are a few that probably were not weeded out, but they have an agenda that we don't know. And I'm not sure what that agenda is. I am hoping and praying that it's a good agenda, that whatever the Federalist Society prepared them for is good for the nation.
For the country.
Having said that, I'll get back to the Kavanaugh case. Where we are, regardless of who's right or who's wrong, regardless of what the truth is with what you mentioned with the judiciary, which includes the FBI. Unfortunately, despite what our emotions may be, the FBI in this case is only doing a background check for a job opportunity for somebody who's interviewing for a job.
Yes.
And that means that the person who's hiring, which is the White House, sets the parameters that they use. And what people are not happy about, and I'm not happy about, is that there's been so much stumbles on things that should be easy. There was this thing about not using the FBI, but once we decided to use the FBI, why still mask? I mean, why make things that are hard, that are easy hard, by giving them parameters that seem not to follow the
standard operating procedure?
If you're trying to find out the truth, then go for the truth. The time limit is not a problem, but you can't handcuff people behind their back and tie their legs and still tell them to run a 5-minute mile. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, okay. Let's look at this. Justice Roberts was a Republican pick. During the Obama presidency, with specific reference to Obamacare, he ruled against the Republican plan. In other words, the Republican Party's greatest desire was to kill Obamacare.
Individual mandate.
Yes. Justice Roberts ruled against that on his recognizance based on his principles of what he felt was right or wrong.
Because the government has the right to do taxes.
Yes.
It was a tax on individuals, and that's how he found out to be constitutional.
Okay. So, my issue is, I am not particularly, some of what comes out from the Democrat side is hyperbole. I do not believe that because a Republican president picks a justice, that automatically that justice is going to be a Republican judge or vote 100% Republican. You hope that we are picking men of integrity, men who are seasoned, understand the law, and will research the law and rule on the facts of the law. Mm-hmm. And it should not be whether it is Republican or Democratic. I remember when Justice Clarence Thomas was for his confirmation hearing, he also had a similar situation as with Anita Hill as we are having today with Kavanaugh. Yeah. I will say that he carried himself with a lot more dignity and decorum than Kavanaugh expressed during this meeting. It is okay for you to come out and say, this is a personal attack on me. I am not happy. It is okay for you to say, I feel that I have become a pawn in a political game. That's okay. It is okay for you to express regret that the country has come to where it has come. I accept that. But for you to come out and blatantly attack Democrats and start naming names specifically, including the Clintons, you are going to be a justice that is going to come and interpret the law for the country, both Democrat and Republican. Don't you worry that should he be confirmed, what you're really setting the stage for is for people to completely lose faith in the ability of the Supreme Court to render a fair judgment. And that's where I'm coming from with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And definitely, the court is not going to be the same if he is appointed to sit on that bench. Yeah. And the country's perception of the quality of the justices that we place on the court will also be in question. Yes. The view of most Americans in terms of the character that is needed to be able to be considered fit for such an exalted position will also be called into question. So that's why Jeff Flake stood up for the rest of the country to say we need to pull back. There is something that is bigger than an individual's opportunity or the ambition of a certain class of Americans who maybe feel that his candidacy or his being a nominee is really what they would be to their own advantage. So that leads to the question, to the advantage of who? Because for the conservatives, they want to pack the courts. To whose advantage and for what purpose?
Well, okay. Is it for the benefit of America? Because that is the litmus test. Is it good for America?
So that will help, that will require us to, at some point, to unpack the history of the Supreme Court. Remember that it is this same Supreme Court, not as presently constituted, but the Supreme Court of the United States that ruled in Plessy versus Ferguson that the Constitution of the United States does not, that the black man has no right that should be protected by the Constitution of the United States.
So that the Constitution of the United States did not offer the same protection
towards
the Negro as it did
the African.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes.
It's the same Supreme Court that also made sure that Mr. Ferguson did not get his citizenship when he got back to Missouri, and that was part of what led to the Civil War. Because, that was the partly the Supreme Court of Missouri. But again, the Supreme Court of the United States have not been on the side of the American values and on the side of justice as to protect all Americans. That is the history.
So I'll say what that means
Yes.
is the Supreme Court sometimes gets it wrong. And
Yes.
they are human beings, and
I agree.
there are a few things that have gone through the Supreme Court.
And it's a work in progress.
It's not a work in progress.
Well,
it depends on who
no,
gets.
but I think the more important thing is that when I say it's a work in progress, we are humans. We make
Our
mistakes.
biases.
Yes, but the hope is that we learn, and with each generation we do better.
Yes.
We don't go backward.
Nobody see again. I'm glad that came up. The idea of going backwards have become the story of our present age. Where we are now is actually like America. We are dialing backwards. So we're having a conversation about sexual harassment. We're having a conversation about sexual violence. We're having a conversation about sexism and the way women perceive they are being treated by American males.
Many years after the suffrage movement.
Many years after the suffrage movement. Many years after Anita Hill. Many years as we have passed sexual harassment laws, rights
to protect
Title IX, making sure that women and girls are treated the same. So we are back.
Week that we were discussing Bill Cosby going to jail.
That's right.
Yes.
The same week, a few weeks after we talked about some of the people that are going to be arraigned pretty soon, I hope, in Hollywood for their problems with sexual harassment.
Yes.
While Me Too movement is in growing increments.
Yes.
The same time, we're discussing things that were discussed in 1982, Anita Hill versus Clarence
Thomas, yes.
In 2018. The problem I see with that, there are many things, but I actually, before I get to the problems, I want to say something that we hear often, but we don't internalize, and we should, which is elections have consequences.
Yes, absolutely.
When the Democrats lost the Senate,
and the House, and the presidency.
House wasn't able to get Garlic, Maryland,
yes, yes.
Merrick Garland.
Pick
yes.
through the House because Mitch McConnell said that it was too close to the election with 246 days to go.
That's right.
The same Mitch McConnell is trying to shove this through with 50 days left to go because elections have consequences. So for all of us that live in Illinois, we have something to decide for, starting from your mayor all the way to the governor this year. If you sit at home, somebody else would decide, and then the consequences, good or bad, will come to you.
Yeah.
Same happens for the federal houses and the Senate. But where I was going with this is, I think I probably lost my train of thought with the things that were wrong. So in this case, truth has no color, it has no shade, it has no blue or red. And if we are really seeking the truth with regards to Ford versus Kavanaugh, when we were at a deadlock, then there is no reason to put all these kinds of restrictions on the judiciary, on the FBI,
on the FBI,
background investigation, unless somebody's trying to get the outcome that they want, which means the FBI will finish and it will still be something hanging in the balance. The problem that we will have is this. If they go ahead and vote by Friday and confirm Kavanaugh to the court, let's say that's what happens, and he gets on the court, and then after he's gotten on the court, we get the information that the FBI wasn't able to get, and we get collaborators that is so clear. Let's say we find a smoking gun. Then what then happens? Then we have to work to impeach a federal a
sitting justice of the
yes. Why rush this way? Why do we want to make a mistake? If this guy is as innocent as he believes he is, let's make sure we give him the clean slate he needs to get on that court and sit pretty. But if it's not, then why are we trying to? What are we doing? What's the message we are communicating to the women And what message are we sending to the young men?
Well, you know, the first person I heard speak eloquently to this issue of giving it time in a non-partisan way was actually from a Republican, retired Senator DeContini of Arizona, had made the point that, in his opinion, there is enough time to look into these allegations, try to come to some kind of conclusion, and there is still time to do all of that and confirm him before election time.
For the election, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but you see, unfortunately,
Yes.
Mitch McConnell is not showing the right temperament and not understanding the mood of the country. And I say that because he's already setting a date for the vote, not knowing what FBI will find.
Yes.
That is, if Kavanaugh is still going to be
Eligible.
or if he has, if that is with the understanding that he's not going to withdraw his nomination,
Yes.
or that Trump is not, the president is not going to withdraw his nomination.
Yes.
So you see, so when you hear him say, "Oh, we must have a vote by Friday," then it means that the system is already rigged,
Or that he's very confident.
or he's very confident on the outcome,
That the FBI will not. Yes.
no, or he doesn't care about the outcome. And see, and that is what I tell my conservative friends: when we no longer care about character,
Yes.
when we no longer care about the man's integrity, then where are we? What are we portraying? Who are we trying to represent? Do you understand?
Yeah.
So when we are trying to pack, and if you ask the Republicans, let's understand it. Oh, they want somebody who will go in so that we will be able to maybe take down Roe versus Wade. Fine. There is nothing, no law America will pass that will stop abortion from happening in this country, because it is a personal issue that people have to do based on their own conscience and understanding. And you cannot
If
cannot
you make
legislate
it illegal,
You-
it will still go
no,
on.
you cannot legislate morality.
Yes.
And that's what I tell my friends in the church. We cannot the government cannot do what we are unable to do through our own ability as the church to convince people to see the world the way we see it.
Yeah.
I am with you. As
Do you understand? So
the government makes a law against.
So
that
even
law.
if you have an injured brother, go into the court. He's not going to get you the outcome that you are going to get. So unless there is a different outcome they are pursuing, that's why I don't think it's all about Roe versus Wade.
Oh, no, I do not think it's Roe versus Wade at all.
Because we know how the contract with America went.
Yes.
When the Christian right rose up and was, actually threw their weight behind the Republican Party, with Newt Gingrich,
With Newt Gingrich,
and
yes.
then gave them the House for years.
Yes.
Yet, nothing happened on the social agenda side.
Yeah.
Instead, we saw men of failed character. Because people called Bill Clinton in his era, he's a true American.
Yeah.
But also look at all the people that were persecuting him and talking about him. So those who cast him the stones against him were not also
Not pure.
They weren't without sin.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so in this instance, what we're asking is truly, if you are honest to the process, if you are honest to the process, tell us who you are and what happened. Now, what you've seen in that whole testimony, that most of the things he has dropped is not true.
Well, and therein lies the issue. So, would you confirm a man that is, shown to have lied under oath? Because I think that may end up being the bigger question. He has stated categorically, I drink beer, I like beer, but I have never been drunk. And that he made it clear. So when you find stories that corroborate the fact that, as many young men do, that he did drink to excess, and there were periods of time when he was completely inebriated, which in itself, I will say, I would not consider necessarily a moral flaw, because hormones are hormones. Young men do stupid things when they are young and grow out of it to become people of character. So, and this is not to talk about sexual violence. That's not what I'm talking about at all. Talking about getting drunk and
Getting into a fight in a bar.
things like that. Yes, okay. So, that a man does that when he is in his teens and 20s, cleans out his act, and turns out to have a stellar career, you call him out on it, and he admits, as many, many, many Americans do on a daily basis, boy, were we foolish when we were young. And I do not know that it necessarily becomes a big issue.
If you remember Bill Clinton, Clinton went on Arsenio and talked about how he
smoked pot,
and did not inhale.
Well,
and we all know that.
You see, but these to me are character flaws. Well, if you bring in Bill Clinton, since we're talking about this, consider what would have happened if Bill Clinton had stood up and basically said, my relationship with Monica Lewinsky was a private issue. You can say whatever you want to say about it. I am not going to discuss that issue.
Instead of saying that he never...
No. Brett Kavanaugh was part of the gang, working with 10 Star, plus a lot of the conservative Republican, part of the conservative right, that went after Bill Clinton and funded the over prosecution of the man. Well, in fact, so even people who know about his role within Ken Starr's independent prosecutor's office, he was one of those that actually he wrote a memo trying to convince his boss that Bill Clinton will have to answer some of the most gory, detailed questions about what and the details of what he did with Monica Lewinsky.
Yes.
And unfortunately, his line of act was not followed in the questioning. But he was one of those people that wanted it all out there.
Yes.
Partly because they felt, especially somebody like Lindsey Graham that is now jumping up and down and hitting his hand on the table. He was one of those people that stood up on the bowels of the Senate and said that if a man did what Clinton did, that he has dishonored the office and that it's an impeachable offense. Now, what was eventually the issue with Clinton? He lied.
That's where I was going with this.
Okay, so
it comes out to character.
Yes. So, but after all that,
yes,
this is the same man, Bill Clinton. Many people will forget that when the church that he was courting abandoned him, it was a group of African American pastors that gathered around him in a prayer meeting in Washington, D.C., where he stood up and famously said, I have sinned.
Okay.
And asked for forgiveness, publicly from his pastors, those who submitted themselves to him. And interestingly, that same Bill Clinton is still married to his wife of many years. And many of the people, including Newt Gingrich, that was the speaker that saw his impeachment, Asa Hutchinson, that carried the same impeachment decree to the Senate, and many other Republicans were cheating on their wives and were also having affairs with AIDS
and pedophilia.
Do you understand?
Yes.
So after all this, so going back to the question of Brett Kavanaugh, there's nothing that it is grace. If not for grace, here goes I.
Yes.
So if the brother had come out to say, look, did I overdrink you? Thank God for grace. Grace has brought me through from all those years of
and allowed me to mature to the person I am today.
But you don't present yourself as a choir boy.
Yes.
And go as far as making
be so morally indignant.
That's right. And then all of a sudden your friends are coming out and saying, man, why are you lying about who you are? So that is the thing that is casting aspersions at his character.
That is the flaw. Because the reason I brought Clinton out is there comes a time in a man's life where you tell the truth and take the consequences. Like a man. It is when you are held under the court of public opinion and you hide behind a lie, that is a deep character flaw. I am sorry. Doesn't matter who did it or who didn't. So I said with Clinton, it is a character flaw. With Kavanaugh, it is a character flaw.
You are right, and I agree with you. Yes, I'll go to the Bible. The Bible says that whoever is faithful with very little will also be faithful with very much.
Yeah.
And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with very much. So, given that he was lying on the little things, that his friends and his colleagues and his other staff, fellow alumni have to call him out on that. He shows a flaw, but we talked about grace. And the last time when we talked about grace, we mentioned a few of them, even in the Bible, including David. There is still time to come clean.
And yes, and make amends.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, this is Straight Talk Radio. You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. I am Mazi KK Odeluga.
Mazi Ejikeme Obase.
Na Mazi Oke Okachuku.
This is Straight Talk Radio, the world as we see.
Coming to you from WGHC 98.3 FM. Your voice, your music, your station.
Listen to us this and every Saturday at 4 to 5 p.m. U.S. Central, and this and every Tuesday at 9 to 10 p.m. U.S. Central.
Good. Welcome back to Straight Talk Radio. We're coming to you again from WGHC 98.3 FM. Your voice, your music, your station. You can listen to us by using your WGHC 98.3 FM app if you have the iPhone or the TuneIn radio app in the Android. Otherwise, you can also tune into on your dial 98.3 FM if you're in the Chicago area. You can also see us on Facebook Live when you go to WGHC 98.3 FM Facebook page. We are a community radio station, a non-for-profit organization, and we live and we operate based on the monies that you give us and the donations that we receive from listeners like you. You can be a part of our family by supporting us, and go to WGHCFM.org, and then you will be able to give us any amount of money. We will so much appreciate your help and your assistance. All your donations are tax deductible. So please give generously and talk to your friends about what the work that WGHC is doing. We are your voice, we're your music, and this is your station. Again, this is Straight Talk Radio. Prior to the break, we were talking about Kavanaugh, and earlier in the program, we had mentioned that the First Lady, our own Melania Trump, is visiting Ghana as part of Peace Corps, just to see some of the work that Peace Corps is doing in Ghana.
It's actually USAID.
USA. That's right.
Yes.
So, and that is quite an interesting development, because about a month ago when this was announced, everybody was kind of like shocked, because it did appear that the administration does not really care about Africa. So what is Melania doing in Africa? Because she's not just going to Ghana, she's going to about 3 or 4 other countries.
Right. If I should jump in first, actually, I think with the cuts in USAID programs to Africa, that this administration is deciding that it's the right thing to do to try to save their money and not give too much I not disagree? Africa, it's about time we put our hands in our pocket, or if we take it out of our pocket, that we put it on the sand and start working for ourselves and stop looking for handouts. So, on that note, I do not have a problem with U.S. pulling back and saying we're not going to just give away money to Africa. After all, I have not seen the results. I don't think that's why they're doing it. But whether they care for Africa or not, Africa should start caring for Africa. That's how I will start.
I absolutely agree with that position. It seems to me that if I know we talked about the Peace Corps and I mixed it up with USA, but let's put both of them on the table. So you look at when the Peace Corps was set up, how many years ago, a lot of young Americans went to different parts of rural Africa. They taught school, they helped development projects, and especially for those we know their stories in Nigeria, they did a marvelous job. Now, that was more than 50 years ago. Is it that Africa does not have the manpower, educated manpower, to cater for themselves? Is it that they do not have the ability to set up an economy that is self-sustaining? Why is it that Africa has to be this continent that can be depicted as a beggar with a big bowl, always begging? And let me also point out that sometimes you get the alms even when you're not begging for it, because no aid comes without strings.
No free lunch.
There's no free lunch. So, like you, Mazi Okachuku, I absolutely support Trump, but for totally different reasons.
Now,
yes,
many in the NGO community,
yes,
will disagree with both of you.
okay,
From this point of view,
yeah, sure,
you have people who have great needs
okay,
that are not being met by their home countries,
yes,
despite the wealth
yes,
of the land
yes,
in which they are growing up,
absolutely,
and have come to rely on the dollars that come to them from USA,
yes,
and the capacity building that comes through such organizations as USA, that have made it possible for them to touch lives and to make a difference in some of these, communities.
yes,
So to them, it is God sent,
okay,
because they don't have the support from their home government.
I agree,
So, for example, even in the area of immunization,
yes,
which is in the front line of disease prevention and actually trying to reduce infant mortality and all that kind of stuff among children in developing countries.
okay,
You still need foreign aid to be able to procure such medicine. Okay. PIGFA, for example, which supports the distribution of
HIV-related medication.
So, but I hear where you guys are.
So no, because I want to give you an official response to your response.
That's right.
So let us look at this. Bernard Kouchner pushed through a law I believe that was through the United Nations.
That's right.
That says governments can forcibly go and give aid to a people who are in dire straits against the will of the supervising government. In other words, if a group of people within a country are dying and desperately need medicine, need food, that it should be legal for you to forcibly remove the overpowering government so that the people can eat. I give you examples of during the Iraq war, after the first Iraqi war, before the second shock and awe, there was a no-fly zone over northern Iraq that basically prevented the Iraqi army and the Iraqi Air Force from moving in on the Kurds.
Yes.
And that allowed the Kurds the ability to right themselves.
Yes.
The point I am making is it is hypocritical for Western governments, who in a lot of instances are the exact reason for the destitution that you see in Africa, to come back and give aid. Why is it that at night you slice me open with a knife and in the morning you come and give me a band-aid? How about you take your knife and go away? So if the Western governments truly want to help Africa, what they should be doing is putting pressure on the corrupt African governments to begin to either clean out their act or get out of the way. We don't need aid. But it's very difficult for people to survive when these same Western governments are supporting the despots that put the condition of people where they find themselves.
So to help drive your point, I'm going to Mazio Delga, this is for you. So Voice of America
Yes.
did the story of Melania going to Accra and then to Malawi and a few other places. And you know, one of the people they talked to, he is a senior fellow for the African Policy Studies at the CFR.
Okay.
Your good friend John Campbell, who said that the U.S. remains popular in Africa and that whatever the First Lady does is going to be a representation of the nation instead of what the President does. And why it's important to mention your good friend's name is because he used to be part of the State Department that argues against everything that we know as Africans, especially for Nigeria.
Yes.
Made the policy extremely terrible that the U.S. will do what we think is the wrong thing, and then leave, like you're saying, they slice you open at night and then come back in the morning to provide sutures. And
John Campbell is the one, wasn't he one of those that argued vehemently against any kind of action against Boko Haram?
He was one of the 12 professors.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. There are so many ignorant men and women in the foreign policy establishment of the United States who do not know or understand Africa. But they tell Africa's story from their own point of view, mainly for their own colonial or paternalistic vision. That is true. But in this instance, John Campbell is right, in the sense that America is very popular in Africa. And so when they see Melania, where you would think that the president of Ghana will send his wife to meet her at the airport, don't be surprised that the entire cabinet goes there and rolls out the red carpet for her, because they're trying to curry favor from a White House that have no regards for Africa. That's sad. But within Africa, the man on the street, the woman on the street, the boy, the girl, everybody loads Africa. You remember the picture, the video that was circulated once about the pastor in the Middle Belt when he was holding a woman that was killed by the Fulani head.
Crying, yes.
Crying, and he wasn't praying to God to help and to come and save them. He was pleading and petitioning America to come and help. That is the perception that actually people have of America outside of the United States.
That is true.
And so when she shows up in Africa, people are not going to be talking about the fact that Trump does not care about Africa or me and you, but it will be like, oh, America is here and they're going to flood. And so that's a great public relations strategy on her part, one, to strike out and to kind of like do something that could become really
that will raise her profile.
So
the question, okay, go ahead,
of African first ladies, what they think about Melania showing up. And the one I liked the most was Monica Gengos of Namibia, who said that just like every African, welcomes her to take a trip if she wants to, but she wants her to, when she comes, to try to understand Africa and break through the stereotypes, because in most of the stories, what really comes out, or what they really go home with, is that everybody in Africa is poor, incapable, helpless, and that we need the almighty U.S. or some Western country to come in with aid to get us going. And I really like that, because this is somebody who's thinking beyond. And the other thing is that the stories say that Melania is taking her Be Your Best to Africa. I'm not sure what that means. I want to wait till the stories develop, because I want to see what that means in the African context too. Because Be Your Best is about stopping bullying. One aspect is about tackling the opioid crisis, and I forgot what the other third part is. Opioid crisis is not a big deal in Africa, at least as far as I know right now. And stopping bullying, I don't think that's what we are, as Africans, are suffering from. And I think the other one is with infants and infant care. Okay, that one I could see, but I want to see the story develop so that we could have an angle of where this is going.
Anyway, but here is what we're dealt, the hand that this administration has dealt with us. Maybe someday we'll really need to talk about what is the American foreign policy towards Africa and what drives those foreign policy issues. That is important, because we are tired of being patronized. Africa has played great role in the life of America and the Americas. And so it's not a question of being neglected, but it's for us really taking our place and determining who we should be in the global community. We've come to the end of our show this evening, and we want to thank again all our listeners and those who are following us on Facebook Live and those who are leaving comments. Please continue to support WGHC and continue to support Straight Talk Radio. We'll try to give you the world as we see it. So again, from my host, my co-host, Mazi Okachuku, and from Mazi Ejikobasi.
See you on Saturday.
And again, it is me, Mazi KK Odeluga. God bless. Obasinta Kachuan Nowelenchi. I am Mazi KK Odeluga.
Mazi Ejikebe Obasi.
Na Mazi Oke Okachuku.
This is Straight Talk Radio, the world as we see it.
Coming to you from WGHC 98.3 FM. Your voice, your music, your station.
Listen to us this and every Saturday at 4 to 5 p.m. U.S. Central, and this and every Tuesday at 9 to 10 p.m. U.S. Central.
Ndewono.
You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM.
But we are nothing's friend from see the first time. After dressing stand, gonna be boy, you get anything you like. Long as you are right, then me alright. You know your man, that's why I'm alive.
Your voice, your music.
Whether me in a skirt or jeans or short shorts, head race when me walk past. Me feel the eyes, believe the eye. Me love the life, me dream the pipe.
Baby, Anna, they say you like you all love. I get to all, baby, Anna. Anywhere that you go, I can follow you to go, baby.
You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM.